Hi guys, my name is Lacey of Spooky Lips and Fat Hips, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I don't know how I feel about this green lipstick. I just feel like it makes my teeth look yellow, but we're going with it now because I'm filming like 3 videos tonight. Also, can we talk about this dress for a second? This is like a full Halloween Town hocus pocus moment, if you will, as the cool kids are calling it, and I'm just like so into this dress. I love it. Target. But anyway, enough of that. Once again, I find myself extremely excited because today I'm going to be reviewing for you guys Meesha Cosmetics. Meesha Cosmetics is a new indie brand from the UK that I feel like has really kind of rocked the makeup world, so to speak. Because I feel like one of these palettes in particular is very different than things that we've seen before, and I just feel like they've kind of stepped out of the eyeshadow box that I feel like we've been existing in as makeup consumers for a hot second. And so when I got these, first of all, let me talk to you guys about how I found these. So I think I had seen makeup looks done with this palette in particular, the Witchcraft Palette, which that name speaks to me. And then I kind of looked on their Instagram and I was like, ooh, those palettes are really pretty, but I don't know, because I'm a little weary buying from indie brands that I haven't heard reviews of, even though that hasn't stopped me in the past. Only because, like, I want to... Every time. Only because I want to kind of... Especially buying international indie brands, because I love UK-based indie brands. I feel like they come out with some great stuff. But the shipping cost, obviously, is a lot when you're transporting things overseas. So I always want to make sure that I have an idea of the kind of product that I'm getting when I'm investing the money into it, especially in a case like this where I know I can't send it back or anything like that. And then I heard Angelica talk about specifically the Witchcraft Palette in one of her Will I Buy It videos, and I was like, Angelica likes it. She's one of those people on YouTube that has my full attention, and when she says she likes things, I'm like, Between like totally scoping them out on Instagram and hearing Angelica talk about them, I was like, I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to buy the bundle. Originally, I was just going to get the Witchcraft palette, but then there were shades in all 3 palettes that really caught my attention, and that's how I ended up pre-ordering the bundle before they were ever actually released. Had a very good experience shopping from Meesha. I will just say I did pre-order, but they were shipped relatively quickly after the true release date. They were shipped overseas, which is always a pain in the ass. I did have a couple shadows arrive broken, more so cracked than broken. I'll show you the worst one right off the bat, which really isn't even that bad. This Nocturnal Night shade, which is a somewhat redundant shade name, but arrived pretty much the most cracked and the most broken, but really I just had to smush the shadow back in, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the company themselves. My order could not have been packaged better. So much bubble wrap, so much attention to like the safety of the products was put into it. There was like no airspace in between the products and the box themselves. I really think it was just a matter of traveling overseas and also the softness of the shadows, which I'll get into in a second. So I have 3 palettes here. These are the 3 palettes that are currently available from the brand. I originally was going to talk about all of this all at once, but I do kind of think I want to go palette by palette. And I think I'm going to go in the order of like I don't want to say the least interesting palette to me, but I will say like if I had to rate them, what my number 3 pick would be all the way to my number 1 pick, which you guys probably have already figured it out already. But starting with my number 3 pick out of their bundle of 3 palettes. This is the Fawn Palette. All of their palettes are kind of named for some kind of mythical foresty thing, and I like that. This is the inside of that palette. For the record, just side note, I like the overall packaging to all 3 palettes. So it's cardboard, it has their logo on it, has the ingredients, tells you that it's cruelty free, tells you the net weight, which I don't really care about net weight when it comes to palettes, no offense. I just own so many eyeshadows that, like I've said before, they're going to have to be buried in a tomb with me, so that doesn't bother me. They tell you the batch number, all the good stuff on the back. The thing I like about this though, one, cardboard is like very sleek and easy to like store. I really like cardboard packaging, but this like palette feels hefty. All their palettes feel hefty. They have like a nice weight to them. Even like when I first unboxed them weeks ago and pulled them out, I was like, holy shit, because they feel, I don't know if they've put a weight in like the component itself, or if just the eyeshadows are that like beefy that they weigh this much, but these feel good for the cost, if that makes sense. Like, I don't, even though this is cardboard packaging, I don't find any of this cheap feeling or anything like that. This feels nice. I've ranked the Fawn palette as number 3 out of 321. The reason why I've done that, I love all 3 palettes. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. The reason why this is my number 3 choice is because, to me, this is the palette that you probably already have multiple times in your collection. And I say this because this is an extremely neutral palette, but I actually feel like this palette is unique in that it is truly neutral. And what I mean by that is, to me, even though this is browns and whatnot, these browns aren't overly warm tone, and they're also not overly cool tone. And I think you get a nice mix of warm and cool, and just, like, true neutral in this palette. Like, you have a gray, you have your browns, but you also have, like, a silver. You also get a couple, like, nice, unique shades, like this Woodland Sunset shade. I don't know if you guys can see. It's, like, a very nice duochrome peachy gold. You get a very fun white pink duochrome. Like, you get a nice mix. Even the Nocturnal Nightshade that I was saying before, for a brown, this is a very rich brown. This almost has, like, the slightest bit of red undertones in it. It's super beautiful. And this Water Reflect shades, holy shitsies. So even though this is neutral as hell, there's still some, like, wowza colors in it. There's still enough that it's, like, to me this is kind of, like, gothy neutrals because they're so dark and they're so deep and they're so rich that I feel like you can get a lot of, like, really stunning smoky eyes out of this. Personally, I really like this palette to pair with the other 2 palettes to kind of tone the other 2 down and make the other 2, I don't want to say more wearable, but maybe just more versatile. I'm going to get into swatches, and then I'm going to talk about how I feel about the formula, because I do feel like my thoughts on the formula in this palette are different than the other 2, which is a little odd, but just something I've noticed testing it for a couple weeks now, because I had been sick, but these 3 palettes were like what I was reaching for the most for a couple weeks up until getting sick, so I've been using them for a hot second. What I'm going to do is start here at Nocturnal Bean, and then down, and then down. But just all at once. I'm not going to do each individual shade because that's going to take 9 years. And I can see that I've already wasted 10 minutes of your time. Again, I've said this before, swatches are like a shitty way to gauge eyeshadow quality, but they're nice to get an overall color story of a palette. I'm also not going to be exaggerating any swatches. You guys know that. I pretty much just swirl and swipe. Okay, maybe I should have done row by row, but I did want to do all of it, so I had to use my entire arm here. So like I said, performance-wise, this I feel like is the poorest performing palette of the trio. And the reason why is because this row of mattes is extremely disappointing in pigmentation when compared to the pigmentation in other palettes. The metallics, however, though, all of their metallics in all 3 of their palettes are as close to a cream shadow you could possibly be without actually being a cream shadow. Like, holy shit, are they buttery and soft and smooth, and they have that super foiled wet feeling and just so high shine, so super metallic. For me, though, like I said, just the fact that some of these mattes aren't showing up on my skin, I've said it before, I'm as close to translucent as you can possibly get. I'm like the human equivalent to swatching on paper. So if they're not swatching that strongly on me, it's going to take even more building up on deeper skin tones. Overall, though, am I mad about this palette? Absolutely not. I'm extremely glad that I own it, and I do like using it, like I've said, with the other 2 palettes. This is just, I don't know, swatching is awkward. I'm sorry. I try my best. Ooh, I should also note, I've used all of their palettes with eyeshadow primer and without eyeshadow primer. And the same experience over around. I think that they're good enough quality shadows that you don't need an eyeshadow primer. I know not everyone uses a primer, not everyone believes in eyeshadow primer. I'm actually starting to not believe in eyeshadow primer, only because I've been forgetting to wear it so often and have noticed almost no performance difference in my shadows. So, but yeah, performance-wise, wear-wise, not a problem with or without primer. I should also note that I am wearing shades from all three of their palettes on my eyes today. I will take off my glasses and get a little close. I hope you guys can see. I put some green underneath. Shockingly, I did a brown look because I was really inspired by a brown shade in my number 2 pick from their palettes. My number 2 pick being the Queen Bee eyeshadow palette. This is my number 2 pick from Meesha because while this is still safer and more on the neutral side because it is like browns and reds, this palette is still very bright to me and still very warm. You get some really stunning reds, but you also down here get these really rich golds and like orangey golds and like brassy colored like almost green based golds. And then the shade Flight that I rubbed all over my face today, even though it's a brown, it's just like kind of a really unique brown with like a slight kind of greenish orangey base. This palette's stunning. These, again, if you're into like rich vampy colors, this is going to be your friend. I do think the mattes in this palette perform a lot better than the previous palette. I think they kind of remind me of Anastasia shadows to the extent of Subculture, and I loved the Subculture palette because of how pigmented it was. These shadows, like I said, remind me a lot specifically of that palette and the Prism palette. And I say that because these are the kinds of palettes where, and I brought a brush to demonstrate, when you hit it, I don't know if you guys can see it, a lot of kick up happens. Like, this is not a palette that you need to swirl your brush in. These are palettes that you need to, like, tap. And, like, then you're going to get full pigmentation. So I'm going to... Also, these are palettes where if you don't do your eyeshadow first, which I don't, you're going to want to lay down a base of translucent powder on your eyes to catch all the fallout. Because there is going to be fallout, but I don't mind it. So yeah, you guys saw me just dip in that palette. This is the pigmentation I got from dipping. I love this. Not all of the shades have that kind of like subculture-y kick up when you just poke it, but the ones in these do. And like I said, for me, that's a pro. Like, that's not a con to me. If that's a con to you, though, these might not be so user-friendly for you, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm going to start my swatches on my hand this time, so I'm not like, well, okay. Again, going to start here, go down, here, go down, here, go down. Okay, I think those swatches went a little bit better. Do you see what I mean about this palette being amped up a little bit more than the first palette? This palette being the Queen Bee palette, and the second one being the Fawn palette. I just feel like these shades are so unique. Those purples are unique. Those golds are unique. The brown feels unique. I love this palette. As you can see, I hope, the mattes in this one are already like much more pigmented, even in a swatch. And swatches don't tend to mean shit. But even, like, the texture difference in swatching them, these mattes feel a lot creamier and a little bit more dense. And maybe that's why they have more pigmentation. If you're not comfortable with super pigmented shadows, like if Subculture pissed you off, if you feel like you don't really want to have palettes with a little bit of a learning curve, and I'm going to get into what I mean by that after I'm done swatching the last palette. Again, these might not be for you. But if you love color and you want a lot of pigmentation at first dip and first application, you're going to really love these. And I hate to see the swatches go. Finally, we have the Witchcraft Palette, which of course was going to be my number 1 pick, because I really have nothing like this in my collection. For as ridiculous of an eyeshadow collection that I own, no single palette delivers like a color story like this to me. I have palettes that have greens and have blues and have purples, but not like going for it. Like this palette took that theme and went for it. And not like we've seen, like, to me, this is close to what I would think of when I, like, if you were like, Lacey, design a mermaid theme palette. I know this is witchcraft, but like, go with me on this. If I were to sit down and design like a mermaid theme collection, it would probably look something like this. as opposed to a lot of palettes that come out that are mostly neutrals with like a pop of green or blue. Like I said, this palette went there. It went for it, and it's nice, and it's different. And even though it has a brown and it has an orange, it works, and they're still very vibrant, and it's enough to maybe make this palette more accessible for people who don't want to do an all green or an all purple look or something like that. But it still holds true to the witchcraft theme. It's still different. It's still totally unique. That's why I think everyone is so fucking excited about this palette, because it is truly so different than what we've seen lately. Their other palettes are more on the safe side. This definitely doesn't feel safe at all. I think a lot of indie brands release very safe-looking neutral palettes because they want to get their stuff out there to a mass audience. This is very bold, and I love it, and I think that it totally works in their favor as a new brand. I think if they continue to release makeup like this that's very different and very unique, they're going to have a very loyal fan base, because I think they've already achieved one. Something I also want to point out real quick before I swatch this, within all three palettes, there is no repeat color. So if you buy all three, you're not going to be disappointed. They have white duochromes in every single palette, but like this one flashes green, the other one flashed purple, the other one flashed pink. Like, they're all different enough. Even though they all have browns, they're all different enough. Like, yeah, you could achieve probably the same looks within a couple of them, but mostly you're going to have a lot of variation, which I appreciate, because all three palettes are sold in a bundle. And with that, let's get to a swatching. Just one more time for reference. Down, and then down, and then down. These ones also, I want to point out there, feel the creamiest out of all of them. I don't know if my mind has placebo affected my perception of this palette, but I feel like even the mattes are like so super buttery and creamy and near cream shadow status compared to the other ones. I don't know. And these are all of those swatches. This one's my favorite by far. My only one criticism is that the green and blue shades on the eyes can tend to look kind of similar if we're using them both in one look. But overall, like, if you're into gothy makeup, if you're into vampy makeup, if you're into colorful makeup, if you just want something new and refreshing in your collection, this palette is the one that's going to deliver it for you. Beautiful. Also, something I want to point out, and I only know how to talk about this the same way that I would talk about sediment, so I'm going to phrase it that way. Their metallic shadows come in different grain sizes, and what I mean by that, it's going to be hard to tell. If you can see the, like, slivers of glitter, probably mica, if I had to guess. Actually, I don't see mica in their ingredients list, so I take that back. Either way, if you see their metallic shadows, this, like I was saying, the grain size of this is a lot bigger than the grain size of a shadow like this, let's say, which means that this shadow translates way more metallic on the eyes. So if I had to, like, classify this would be like a metallic shadow, and this would be like a foiled shadow. So you get variation even within the shimmery shadows, which I think is kind of interesting. Similar to in my Instagram and Me Violet video, which I just learned how to do cards, so I'll put it somewhere up here. I talked about how OPV Beauty had done that in their palettes. That's what it reminds me of. But yeah, this palette is really, really cool. I do want to pull up their website for a second while I collect my final thoughts, because their website actually kind of influenced me to purchase, but I think that what interested me is going to turn off a lot of people. I'm just looking at my phone. When you go on MeeshaLouCosmetics.com, you can buy all the palettes individually. You can buy them in a bundle. If you buy the bundle all together and you are in the US like me, it is going to cost you over $100 plus like tax and stuff. It's just the conversion rate. It is what it is. Everything will be linked down below, of course. But something I found interesting on their website was they offer application tips. And I think, like I said, this is what attracted me to want these products. I think this can turn a lot of people off, which is kind of how I feel in general about all three palettes. Excuse me as my internet goes as slow as it possibly can. First, they have how to apply Meesha Lou eyeshadows underneath their tips and inspiration page on their website. One of the first things they suggest is to apply your eye makeup first, which, like I said earlier, I definitely agree with because of the kick-up, fallout, however you want to say it. This is definitely a product where you might want to tap off your brush. I personally, like, never tap off my brush because I just feel like it's annoying. But even applying the metallics, if you're not using your finger, if you're going to use like a flat synthetic brush, I had fallout that way. So just keep that in mind. They explain to just use a concealer base, so they're not suggesting to use eyeshadow primer, which is mostly how I've been using it. Tap the eyeshadow gently with a brush your finger to build it up. By applying a little, you get more control over super pigmented eyeshadows. So this is kind of where I was like drawn in a little bit. I also want to point out with their shimmers, I do use a glitter glue always on my lids just personally because of my lid shape. Normally I'll foil my inner shadow colors, my highlight color. Didn't have to do that with this palette. The metallics perform very well by themselves. Okay, this is what got me. To truly get color results, use the dump and blend method, which is where you load a lot of color onto your brush in the center area and then slowly blend outwards. So the way that implies to me is kind of in my head, like I said before, made me think of the Anastasia Subculture palette, where people were complaining that it was too pigmented and too hard to blend, and that's kind of why I was like, ooh, I think I want those palettes, because that's exactly why I liked the Subculture palette, was because it had a lot of pigment, and it wasn't like, I guess they were apologetic after the fact, but at the time they weren't apologetic. And it seems like these palettes are the same way. They're meant to be a lot of pigment all at once. And if you're into that, these are palettes that you are going to enjoy. If you're not into that, if you're maybe a beginner with eyeshadows, if you don't want to need that learning curve with your shadows, if you like the option to be able to build up, maybe you're not even into intense eyeshadow to begin with, avoid these. But performance-wise, I don't have issues blending it. I don't have, minus a couple of shades in the Fawn palette, but nothing that really disappoints me, like, incredibly. Truly pigmented shadows, I like working with them. If you were to, like, truthfully, if you were to strip away all of my other eyeshadow palettes and leave me with these three palettes, I would feel okay. I'd be happy. I mean, I wouldn't be happy you took my makeup away. I'd want to fight you. But I could live with just these three palettes in my collection. I think they're very unique and very different, and even the shades that you probably have a million times over in your collection are just slightly tweaked and slightly different in these palettes, and I really like them. So if you're in the UK, definitely try these out, because it's just going to be easier for you to get your hands on them. But if not, and you're in the US or a different country, and the shipping price kind of freaks you out, and trying a new brand freaks you out, I'm saying this has my approval. I'm never on this channel going to tell you, you need these or go out and buy these, but I'm going to say, I really enjoy these. I think if you want to try new indie brands, if you want to support new indie brands, if you're looking for something just a little bit different, especially the Witchcraft Palette, which is so unique, definitely worth giving your money to, worth trying. I don't know, I just feel a little icky being like, yes, spend your money. But as a review, these are Lacey approved. I really, really, really like these, and I'm so excited to see what else the brand puts out. Whew, alright, that was everything. What do you think about these palettes? What do you think about Meesha Cosmetics? Is there one of these palettes in particular you're really excited for? Or all three? Are you going to get them? Have you gotten them? What are your thoughts? Talk to me down below. Oh, also, are there any other indie brands that you think that I should know about? I know some of you guys have started tagging me and stuff on Instagram, and that excites me that you think about me when you see cool makeup. So yes, continue to do that. Let me know what indie brands you think I might like, or that I might be interested in, or indie brands that you like and that you're interested in. Let's just have a conversation down below, because I love talking with you guys. I feel awkward asking you to give this thumbs up if you liked it, but you know, it really helps me out if you do that, and it lets me know what you guys like and what you don't like. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. You will see me in this outfit a couple more times this week. And yeah, once again, I know I've already said it, but I'm just happy to be back on YouTube. And I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys!